Namaskar and welcome to Vatika. Once again, Vatika, the biophilic studio here at IIT Kharagpur Research Park. As we all know, we are doing several podcasts here, and one of those tracks or streams of the podcast is what we call Alumni Tales. So, welcome once again to Alumni Tales. Now, in this edition of Alumni Tales, we have with us a very special guest. Now, I must confess that it's not really right to call our alumni guests because this Vatika is indeed as much theirs, as much all of yours as it is anyone else's. So, in that sense, it is a little unfair to call our alumni guests to the Vatika, but guest or host, whoever it is, that's for you to decide, and for Chandra Vikash-ji. Just a few years, 3 years junior to me, graduated in 1993. And why don't I, as the format goes, allow you to represent a little bit, give a little bit of your background. Most of you who are watching this, probably or many of you will know him. But for all of those who may not know about Chandra Vikas's background, a little bit about your background, and then we will move on to the real meat of this format, where we really persuade our alumni to share what they think is their most important learnings ever since they have graduated from IIT, after having spent 4 years there. After that, they might have spent a few years or many years. In that time, whatever experiences that they have gone through, what we want them to do is to share the crux of that experience in this half an hour format. So we have, as part of the format, about half an hour time. Within that, the stage is all yours, and I will only interject once in a while to switch from from the background story onto the main thing. All yours now, Chandra Vikash.
Yeah, thank you. Namaskar. Such a pleasure to be here in this beautiful Vatika ambience. I'm really soaking in the sight, sound, and smell. The wonderful. So, my hearty congratulations for doing this out of the box thing. I grew up in a Sale township, and as you remember one of the Sale ads, that there is a little bit of Sale in everyone's life.
Yeah. Correct.
So I like to say that there is a little bit of the India in every IITian's life.
Okay.
And what was written on the masthead of the central building, dedicated to the service of the nation, that kind of stuck with me. And somehow I saw that as a portal to the fulfillment of my dreams. Though in terms of background, I came with a mixed bag. I was more of a social science and literature guy.
Okay.
And coming from a Hindi-speaking family, from Mithila, where our roots are. I started in a Hindi medium school.
Okay.
My primary education was in Hindi medium. And I really used to love those poems. I'll just recite a few lines that have been so integral part of my being. हम पंछी उन्मुक्त गगन के.
क्या बात है.
हम पंछी उन्मुक्त गगन के पिजरबद्ध ना गा पाएंगे, कनक तीलियों से टकराकर पुलकित पंख टूट जाएंगे, हम बहता जल पीने वाले मर जाएंगे भूखे प्यासे, कहीं भली है कटुक निबोरी कनक कटोरी की मैदा से, नीर न दो चाहे टहनी का आश्रय छिन भिन कर डालो. दिस आर द लास्ट लाइन. लेकिन पंख दिए हैं इसने तो आकुल उड़ान में विघ्न न डालो. And finally the bird, it says that either I will breathe my last or I will meet the horizon.
Ah.
So that, was the spirit, like
Sure.
never give up.
Sure.
And nothing was big or small. So I was kind of a rebel to begin with, that in 8th standard, I was so bored with this notion of having to say that what would you want to do in life, so engineer, doctor, lawyer. So I found that, very boring. So I told my teacher in class 8th, I want to become a sweeper. And then I laid the claim that
that's a new one.
That laid the foundations for Swachh Bharat Abhiyan.
Oh.
And I also like to say that even today, India needs sweeper stars.
Yeah.
In various fashions. And sweeping is the physical activity.
Yeah.
You have to plan how the cities will be clean, how our water streams will be clean, how our air will be clean.
Well, I think when Arvind was starting off the Aam Aadmi Party, if we look at their symbol,
Right, yeah.
is the jhadu.
Yes, very true. So that was one part. Then there was this, the Veer Ras, the inspiration from another poem by Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, Shama or Shakti. So it says, "तीन दिवस तक पंथ मांगते रघुपति सिंधु किनारे, बैठे पढ़ते रहे छंद अनुनय के प्यारे प्यारे, उत्तर में जब एक नाद भी उठा नहीं सागर से, उठी अधीर धधक पौरुष की आग राम के शर से, सच पूछो तो शर में ही बसती है दीप्ति विनय की, संधि वचन संपूज्य उसी का जिसमें शक्ति विजय की."
वाह, क्या बात.
So Saurabh, it's so kind of strange that I have written several poems. I don't remember my poems, but I never forget the poems that I learned in the childhood. So that's my upbringing, the foundation of the Hindu way of life. So I'm a very proud of my roots as a Bharatiya, as a Hindustani. Then growing up, so by the time secondary education, the English wave in a small town had caught up. And being a good, son and a good student, I said, okay, let's, my passion now was to kind of, come in the top in the class. So in the new setting, so this is what I call the migrant syndrome.
Okay.
So when you migrate, you want to make your identity, carve your identity. So that way, I believe that army children particularly, they also have that.
Now you're talking about migrating from one school to the other.
School to another, which is also in those very young days like a different world.
Yes,
because
totally.
The kind of social milieu is
Very interesting.
different.
Very interesting to compare the migration for a child going from one school to another, comparing it to the migration in the sense.
Yes, right. Because that sense of recognition that you want to establish yourself, your identity is there. Then again, a very interesting, and that's the first turning point in my life, that now imagine I'm kind of, in terms of my handwriting analysis, on the side of what we would call a dyslexic.
Okay.
Very bad handwriting.
Okay.
So, despite the fact that I used to top in my internal school exams, I didn't get even 70%, I mean just less than half a percentage, less than 70 in my 10th.
Okay.
And that was quite a disappointment for my parents and for me also, of course. So, I went to a middle rung school in the town.
For your 11th and 12th?
For my plus 2. Because that particular school had just started, and I wanted to.
And by then, you have already moved to English medium, or it is still Hindi medium?
No, so I am in English medium from 5th onwards.
5th onwards, okay.
Yeah. So now, a strange thing happens that even after my father has paid the fee for that middle rung school, the top school in town is St. Xavier's at that time.
Yeah, Bokaro.
Bokaro. Now, of course, there's Chinmaya and DPS who are doing better. So I had no chance of getting into St. Xavier's, and that too in science, because there are hardly 3 to 4 seats from the outside the school. And yet, you may find it very, kind of a miracle there was an essay in the entrance test, something related to terrorism. I don't remember precisely. And in my handwriting, as I already shared, somebody made sense of it. And I was there in those 3 or 4 seats that were there in St. Xavier's in science. So this was another
Miracle.
and another, new social milieu. Now, being in the top school of a town in which, lots of IITians and even AIMS and so lots of aspirational vector was kind of opening up for, and because Jharkhand did not have any higher education, so the beeline for outside. So
and I can imagine Bokaro, because Bokaro, although a small town, but the microcosm is that of all very
of a cosmopolitan, right,
and very
being as a model temple in Nehru's vision and all that. So we soaked in all those, the upbringing from there. The teachers used to pay very good attention and very sincere, very rigorous discipline.
So, and in terms of you were siblings wise, you were
So I'm the eldest in the family. My sister, who's presently in Amsterdam, she's just a year and 2 months
younger
to me. And my younger brother, he is 6 years younger.
6 years younger to you.
Right, So now I get to this new school, and I have this very interesting experience of being ragged by my, senior girls. In the 12th, and
that's
and
interesting.
I'm a very kind of with all my innocence and simplicity, and I would hardly talk to girls in the previous school. And you're also going through that phase of adolescence. So then I had a little curriculum challenge also, coming from CBSE to ICSE. So I didn't have any background in conical algebra and calculus. Long time. And somehow I took a fancy for maths. So I said that, so I kind of did a scenario planning, and I've been good at that from very early on. So I said, whatever dreams I may have of becoming a journalist or getting into public policy doesn't look like, because I'm very unlikely to get high scores in my written exams.
So by this time the sweeper thing had moved to public policy, journalism, those kind of things.
Yes. No, that was more in terms of rebellious kind of take, in terms of that these are also very important, that we should not just talk about very straight-jacketed thinking. So by now the journalism thing was very sound, because I did lots of creative writing around that time. And so now the interesting part is that there is in this new school Australian principal, Father McNamara, and he becomes my kind of inspiration, my role model, in terms of he unlike the Indian teachers, brought lots of humor and wit into the classroom. So for example, when one of the girls was to leave the class for some family thing, so something that was kind of a culture shock for us. So the father says that, how shall I sleep tonight? One of the beauties is leaving the class. So similarly,
father, as in this case, Father McNamara.
Father McNamara,
principal,
right, and similarly, so CIS, so cos and sine would be cis. So lots of camaraderie, and he had a very interesting format of taking quiz. And I started cracking those quizzes. So again, because of that migration thing, I was making that extra effort, and I was already ahead of the class by about 3 months in my differential integral calculus by the time the summer vacation had ended. Because that was, pre-mobile phone era.
Sure, yeah,
So we had all the time, and my video game was calculus.
Yeah, almost pre-television
Pre-television as
in
well.
some ways.
And conical algebra. So with all this going around, Boolean algebra, and so I could kind of visualize mathematics and create the story out of it, and so that way when I got into IIT, it was kind of expected that given my maths and science, I would get some under 500 rank as far as the peer group was concerned. I landed with about 1300, 1305
okay.
exactly, and metallurgy became a default choice because of the steel township. And first year was, of course, as we have common. So one thing that also had.
So 93 metallurgy means you are in the of course. At that point, that was not known, but you are the same group as the famous now Sundar Pichai and that group.
Yeah, right. So Sundar was my classmate, and as you gather by now that my inclinations were very different from his, though we used to hang around in the same group. You also know Sharmishta. So
yes, of course.
Was a brilliant because she was from Jamshedpur.
Yeah.
And so she was quite surprised that when everyone is so keen for scholarships in America, what's playing on my mind, and in terms of I mean, because see, in IIT, the straight jacketing, I mean, social science has very little space in the conversations. But I used to spend lots of time in the library, and there only I discovered that India doesn't have a national innovation framework. So, Saurabh, this has been my lifetime pursuit, and I raised the issue with my senior professors, and they were very sympathetic. They were very happy that somebody who just entered the department has that audacity.
Sure, that's not common at all at that point of time to think about things like national innovation framework in your second
very
or third
uncommon.
year.
But because of my social science and kind of journalistic inclinations, I had this inquiry that why technology gets imported, why India is technologically backward when we have such stalwart. Quest led me to a second year summer training, which is again unlikely. Most people. And when you come to IIT, the tendency is to go to the big cities, not come to your hometown. But that thing that I had, kind of a thick skin, in terms of I was on my own trip, and nobody could shake me unless you gave me a better idea, better alternative. Just some lure of big city, you have hang around places and booze and disco and all that. I mean, as kind of of course I used to be and I'll come on that later.
But although right I must interrupt at this point to tell all of you who are listening to this that we've met now, just been 3 days or so, and I must completely ratify that here is a person who, when he says I was in my own trip, that is what he is today also. A person completely in his own trip, and all kudos to him for that, because it's not easy to not get swayed away by trips which are conducted tours of other travel agents.
So I kind of stuck to my pursuit that so second year I did a summer training at Tata Steel, because they had some new technology called billet caster. Then continuous caster came, and then third year again I went to SAIL, and I was trying to understand the space, the technology space, and where the challenges are. And for example, energy optimizing furnace. I mean, it's just about the geometry. Indians are doing it in the R&D outfits of other countries.
Sure.
So why can't we do it for ourselves? It's not such a big deal. Similarly, when I was in the steel melting shop, so imagine you have a copper lance which has water cooled tubes,
Okay.
and it has to go and blow oxygen, and it has to, if it goes too close, then it hits hard. So there is something called spitting.
Yeah.
If it's a little higher, then the funnel is broader, so it creates frothing.
Okay.
So that's called sloping. So both create problem because the lance has to come out of the jacket,
Okay.
and so slag cannot deposit on that. So first thing was intuitively that why can't we find something that is non-sticky,
Okay.
that the slag doesn't stick there. Number one. Number two is that can we have an online temperature which can dip? And I found out that Nippon Steel already had it.
Okay.
So they used to take a sample, send it through the pneumatic channel to the production planning and control section, and then the chemical analysis would come. By that time, a 1700 degree molten bath would be losing all the heat and the energy.
Yeah.
So it had huge
Loss of energy.
Huge financial implications. So I said that we need to inculcate this spirit of inquiry and get more younger minds, and we will do wonder.
So this was your second, third year?
This was my second, third year. I was kind of getting a sense of it, and I made up my mind that by third year, I was very clear that I'll go to steel plant,
Okay.
and preferably Bokaro, enjoy home food and all the comfort while focusing on particular steel plant.
Was there any other attraction in Bokaro? Because at that age, normally that becomes a factor.
No, well, the attractions were there in Kharagpur itself,
Okay.
and that way, yeah. So I had a good friend. Her name is Mithu Banerjee.
Okay.
And
There
she
comes
is right
the-
now a professor in AIMS Jodhpur.
Okay.
We just met last year
Okay.
on a family trip, and yeah, so she is one of my best friends
From Bokaro.
from Bokaro. Yeah.
And was she the reason for kind of deciding that home,
Yes,
or was it home food?
She did have a because in my batch, as you would recall, because you were there in the counseling. As
Oh, yeah,
you've
yeah.
Been telling me the result was delayed.
Yeah.
So because I was so focused on getting to just IIT, and I have this strategy of not having a plan B. So I was kind of at a loss, as in IIT result. So I was a little tense, and during that time we had a friend's birthday party in which, and she was the one who kind of consoled me that that I'm sure you'll get it. So chin up. So that kind of in those formative impressionable ages, I was very grateful to her.
No, because just like you, I've grown up in a small town, Dhanbad, very close to Bokaro,
Right.
and got through. At that point of time, it was ISM. Now it is another IIT. So got 15 days ragged in ISM, but was hell bent on being in ISM even after getting through to IIT.
Okay.
And the reasons were less home food than the attractions back there.
Okay, yeah, certainly.
It's-
Those are the that's the time when, yeah. So coming to this point of that my pursuit of why technology gets imported.
Yeah.
Now, so I decided in my third year two things. One is that I'll try for 2 years,
Okay.
and after that I'll write my CAT and get into IIM.
Okay.
So a very pinpointed decision was taken, and this is what some of my classmates and hostel mates would tell you, that they really think that I'm mad once I decide on something. I go after it.
Sure. I can see
Coming
that.
from a Hindi medium background, definitely my English was not good. I started learning English from the roots, etymology. And I start playing games. So this is where nobody beats me on that. I start playing games, and comprehension now starts kind of multiplying exponentially. So I can now finish books in days and then hours.
So once again, interruption for all those of you who are listening to this. In the last 3 days, as he was just mentioning, that once something gets onto Chandra Vikash, you cannot get it out of him. So last 3 days that we've met, what has got into him now is that and he's told me several times that we got to get to PMO, form PMO within a year. Now, yes, of course, if it is 29, I still think there's some chance. I kind of think within 1 year but he's absolutely convinced that it can be done. And to all of you.
Yes, so in international relations, there is a strategy called shock and awe. America is known to use it, very effectively. I've been doing shock and awe from much earlier. So you may be shocked, but my target for PMO is next 3 months. But I'll come to that later.
Sure. Well, we do have some criteria here, because we are doing it in the IIT Kharagpur Research Park campus about the nature of political discourse that we will discuss here. But absolutely,
certainly,
all of that. We will discuss
it's
everything.
It's all in my big theme of dedicated to the service of the nation.
Yeah, that's where we were. You were mentioning the
masthead.
The masthead, yeah.
Yeah. So in my third year, I two things that I decided. So from the beginning of third year, I was influenced by some of our alumni. So Raj Kamal Jha was on campus.
Yes.
And Raj Shankar Ray was my hallmate.
Yeah.
2 years senior. So Professor H.S. Ray particularly, who was such a good orator. And so my instinct of journalism rekindled. And I saw a good chance that let me prepare and take a scholarship in journalism.
Okay.
So that so I was just toying with that idea. So I stopped attending classes in third year, which was a very radical decision, but a very conscious decision. After doing lots of homework, that there should be freedom to take a break, take a break here, and I believe it's there in colleges, universities around the world. And I want to make it a practice. So that's another objective that I have. Yeah. I wanted to take a break here because I needed to focus on my social science and on my journalism pursuit. And I kind of built a momentum. So I was not looking at, how my parents would react to it, or how my institution would react to it. I was kind of very sure that as long as my intent is good, nobody can question me.
Yeah.
And that way, my reading of the people or the key decision makers around me was very, I would say accurate.
Okay.
In a way that my head of department, Professor U.K. Chatterjee, who's somebody I am deeply indebted to. Yes. Music and poetry, and he is one of the Tagore inspired figures, very soft spoken. And then Professor Mukunda was there, then Professor Indranil Manna, who just come in recently there. So with all these stalwarts around, I took this decision that let me do what I believe is right.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to classes for 2 months, and yet when my parents found out my father came to campus, the department said, the HOD and other departments said, because your concern is very valid, we will not penalize you, but let's kind of have a deal that you focus on metallurgy, because if you want, you can. There's nothing lacking in you.
Sure.
And we assure you that we'll give all our support as you pass out to pursue your dreams. And I took that, and then my playbook became steel making.
Okay.
So I now started digging literature on steel making, on what is the advancements and all that.
So you
And
did not attend class for 2 months?
2 months.
And then your father came to campus?
My father
to
came to
kind
campus. There was
Yeah.
lots of hue and cry.
You and cry,
around.
and so the deal was that, okay, this was in your third year?
In my third year,
Third
at the
year?
beginning of
So
third
the
year.
deal that was made was that, okay, for these till your final year, do focus on this,
Right.
and after that,
Do whatever you like.
Okay.
And we respect, we appreciate your concerns, but right now the structure doesn't allow.
Oh, understood.
So I really my peers though the so kind of captivated by those Stanford and MIT dreams, and especially as you mentioned, Sundar Pichai was there, and he was one of the bright minds, and we could soak in the aura of his
Okay.
genius around that. Though he was more of also a nerd and very headstrong, so he would pick up fights also, even with my juniors in my
Okay.
hostel. So that was going on. So my peers were very worried that why I would take such a radical step. But things worked out well, and now comes one small kind of event which turns around, because now I'm kind of in the oblivion.
Okay.
So after first 2 years of being in the limelight for various reasons, various activities and all, now suddenly just to test the waters of whether I'm good enough with my kind of getting into the big league business schools.
Okay.
I gave exam test or entrance test of XLRI.
Okay.
And because XLRI is in the region, so it is well known
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
And just as it would happen, there were only 4 interview calls in the campus, and I was one of them.
Okay.
So suddenly, some guy who's kind of supposed to be
Gone into oblivion.
and almost drop out, is now back in the reckoning. And so there's certain incidents I'd like to just keep it out of this conversation, but I did kind of feel, because this is my second home. You come out as a 17-year-old to campus, and coming from a small town, we're not exposed to the the big
Of course.
bad
No,
world.
it becomes your home, really.
Right.
More
And there is a certain innocence, there is a certain naivety about us,
Sure.
which is both good and bad
Of course.
in many ways. So now what happens is that I go to Bokaro Steel. I again have a gala time with my new groups, because there are management trainees from IITs around, and it's my hometown.
So
So I
this
have
is
that
with SAIL, that means.
with SAIL, yeah.
So campus
and campus
was SAIL.
also, and open entrance also.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't take any
chances.
chances.
Okay, that's-
Yeah. So even when I'm telling you that 3 months in the PMO, I'm not taking any chances. Day and night I'm at it.
Sure.
Yeah. So so that worked well. So initially, of course, there was lots of curiosity that somebody very seriously wants to take up a technology development project. RDCIS is there in Ranchi,
Yeah.
in Shamli, which Mekon also is there. So, but I found out that there's no inclination to develop technology. There's no funding for it, and there's no R&D culture. So my understanding that we needed a good technology policy. We need visionaries, and for that we need to focus on public policy was right.
Sure.
So it worked well that now I was all geared up to crack the CAT exam, which, as you know, is one of the toughest exams
Sure,
in
yeah.
terms of number of people appearing and number of seats at that time. And again, with that precision, I got into the first list of IIM Calcutta,
Okay.
which takes calls based on a score, and not like other IIMs, which is about different
Other
weightage,
criteria,
other
weightage,
criteria.
yeah.
So again, by now, because of my social science background, I mean, of course, communication skill is all very good. So I cracked the GD and everything. So I'm there now, and I am. And again, so yeah, because it's an alumni tale, so we should go uncut.
Sure,
So again,
absolutely.
yeah. So I needed to thank you, for, which you mentioned for counseling, to get a considerably higher number of girls in our batch,
yeah. So
and
that the
especially lots of
backstory,
beautiful ones.
just the small backstory for all of you, because the batch which Chandra belongs to is the batch when we were getting into final year, and because the their exams, the JE had got delayed or something, the counseling was happening much later than it normally would. And Professor H.S. Ray, who was then the Dean Student Affairs, he had entrusted on some of us. He had called. I had just become the GSEC Sock and Cult for the Gymkhana, so he called a few of us, those who were kind of a little more extroverted, and called and told us that if we could play a part in the counseling, the freshers counseling, which normally the students are not there. It's the professors who conduct the counseling along with some help with the research scholars and all that. The undergrad students are not there. BTechs are not there on campus. But because there was a decline in the top rankers coming to Kharagpur, most of the top rankers, even from eastern region, were going away to the Kanpurs and the Bombays and the Chennais of the Madras at that point of time. So they wanted to get some of the better ranked students in the campus. So he really called us and gave us a brief that if we could come back a little early and be part of the counseling, and that is what he was referring to. We did come back, we did work on his brief, but our main intention was actually to make sure that the male-female ratio, which was very warped in IIT, as we know, was if we could make some correction to that instead of the top ranker corrections. Of course, we did get some top rankers also, but in Chandra's batch was a complete change in terms of all the beautiful girls who came for counseling remained in Kharagpur.
Yeah, so just heart out. So in those young adolescent days, so thanks to all your efforts, so I'm walking towards the technology market.
Okay.
And this is something you don't expect in an IIT. And suddenly a girl is walking with all the gajra and all. And coming from a small town, this was very fascinating for me. Now, that girl, incidentally, was from your department, Anjali Haryani. And because she used to hang around with Sharmishta, so we spent lots of time together in the evenings. And but somehow, that was one part. But that would never shake my convictions for what I wanted to do. And that continued even at IIM. So again, I had the luxury of bevy of beauties.
Okay. But does that put you into competition with Sundar?
No, I think that came much later. He married Anjali. I think that happened after we left campus.
Okay.
So not while we were there. Yeah, because I'm sure you know the campus stories. So there are lots of So in fact, one girl, and this was in IIM, she actually said it aloud that we have so much choice. Guys should come after us. So here again, and because of being very bold, and so I would participate in the classroom conversations, and I especially challenged the notion of focusing economics on this Amartya Sen doctrine of poverty, deprivation, scarcity. I believe that India is a country of abundance. India is a country of prosperity.
Sure.
And just a few hundred years cannot, take away thousands of years of our, glorious
past
and our legacies. And we have preserved it in our way of life.
Absolutely.
So that was there, very intuitively, that was revolting against this Amartya Sen school of thought, and there were people like Deepak Nair and who perpetrated, and of course the West has a very stated motive to keep us down. We fail to see that.
Colonial motive.
The colonial motive, the neo-colonial motive, the neoliberal, neo-con motive. So, because I was a guy who was not affected by peer pressure and echo chambers, that has really hold. I believe that I have no qualms on saying this. That makes me one of the very exceptional thinkers, and I have people to testify for that. Being very bold and out of the box, and being able to integrate, hundreds of years of history and geopolitical realities, what I am doing right now, which I'll come to in the second part. So here, it was a situation where I'm now in IIM, and I'm again challenging the status quo, and I'm threatened by the economics prof, who later was the Board of Governors chairman, Professor Anup Sinha. That we can't take in more questions from you, and I would say that that's the purpose of classroom. Purpose of classroom is not to get grades and get locked up in some fancy MNC in some fat pay packet. I mean, I kind of dismissed that idea and became very unpopular by the third term in IIM Calcutta. But by now, as a seasoned campaigner, having survived the IIT ordeal, and as in no mood for buckling down under the pressure and all that. So I said, okay, my skills are good enough. I don't need grades as crutches. And to the utter shock of many of my batchmates, now I'm talking about the placement time. I got a day one placement in a chosen area. I wanted to get into an Indian company. I was very sure. So that was my Swadeshi spirit. And Michael Porter had ranked Arvind Mills as one of the top 5 competitive companies in the country.
Right. So you were in Arvind Mills.
I was in Arvind Mills, and not only that, I was the blue-eyed boy of the HR who recruited me. Ganesh Sharman, he's quite popular name in HR circles. And we had a gala time, despite the prohibition, we had everything we wanted, the resorts and all that. Now again, after 1 year, by that time, this is about 98, 97, 98, internet was setting its foot.
Yeah, of course. Remember.
And I've been, so with the kind of momentum I've had in life, coming from a humble Hindi medium background to by now in IIM, I said, this looks good, and this is going to solve my challenge. So I envisaged a venture for information exchange for business and economy, based on there's a framework called Balanced Scorecard, which has lead indicators, Robert Kaplan. So another thing that
lead board and all that.
Yes, which gave me a head start was that I started reading Harvard Business Review, Sloan Management Review, and lots of these journals from my second year in IIT.
And yet did not get swayed into the Skoll cycle. You were reading those?
Yes. See, by third year, as I shared, I was very clear that IIMs will get me where I wanted to. Somehow, this notion of why people wanted to go to America didn't satisfy me.
But later you have gone to Europe and around the world.
I did go for my work trips. I went on social trips.
But you worked in Europe also?
I worked in Europe. I was there for 3 months in London for Mastake on the London congestion charging. And actually, I was supposed to go to US on that trip, but I refused because I told the British that you gave us railroads, we will give you state-of-art intelligent transportation system. And I was very serious. I had the backing of IBM, principal consultant, John Dawson, and PA Consulting, another very influential. But somehow Indian companies disappointed me, and that is what I'll come to the crux of.
Let's get that point also, which you were mentioning as which we didn't discuss and said we will do it at part of the podcast in terms of your movement out of corporate.
Yes, Dada, that's weighing very heavy on my heart, because that's something which I look at as, Gandhi being thrown out of a first class compartment despite having a valid ticket. So I'll just keep that suspense for a little later. I'll just quickly walk you through the years. So after Arvind Mills, I went to, after 1 year, I got a 4-line letter from Professor Ashok Korwar, the head of business policy at IIM Ahmedabad, and he was very impressed by my framework for this information exchange for business and economy. I called it PI, Primary Information Engine.
Okay.
And now with AI, it looks all the more workable. That time, of course, we had to create lots of other tools which were not so effective as we have today. So now with that letter, I quit Arvind Mills. I come to Mumbai.
Okay. This is which year then?
This is now in 98. Just after 1 year. Now in Arvind Mills, again, I had a reputation. So my first assignment by my boss, Pragnesh Mehta, initially you're given a kind of honeymoon period, grace period. So he gave me something which he was expecting to be completed in 3 days.
Okay.
And I kind of cracked it. I went to the IT department. I got the soft copy. I used a business intelligence tool and got the working which he wanted me to do manually in the big printouts.
Okay.
So he was not very happy that, because now he was to give me another assignment. So this came on. So after a few months, I was kind of declared a cultural misfit, which is very obvious that I was doing things much faster and I had aspirations of moving. Right. So I was put in another department which was about bed and bath exports to UK and Germany.
Okay.
And they were very senior people and there was a very powerful team, and I was like told, everybody was told that he's already completed what he was given earlier. Now here again, I figured out that UK bed sizes and Germany bed sizes are different, but they haven't even worked on a flexible width loom that it could be adjusted. So I figured out that Arvind Mills, despite being rated as a highly competitive company in Indian context, was playing on just 5% of the value chain.
Okay.
Cotton was almost about 50% of its cost, and all the finishing, all the technology, everything was imported. So I wondered that again I said, what are our technology institutions doing? And I saw that role. So with my experience in steel industry, with textile industry and educational institutions, these are the 3 sectors I picked, and I created that framework. So I also envisaged of something called ETFC, like HDFC, which would make housing possible based on EMI payments over a lifetime.
And
ETFC is Education Technology Finance Corporation.
Okay.
So I said we need to invest in curriculum development. We need to invest in faculty training. We need to invest in demand mapping. Where are skills required? And that is why I was so respected by my professors to give me all this liberty to experiment with. And now again here in IIM, I am seeing that same mismatch, that there is technology policy course, but that's just an elective. And
no, you're talking about IIM now or during your time?
In my time also. So when I saw that in working in Arvind Mills, that there's nobody, despite IIM Ahmedabad, the premier institution, being in the same city, there's no effort to bring it all together. There's no effort to integrate. Everyone is, in their silos. And So I kind of, it was like a moh bhang.
Yeah.
I was so enamored by IITs and IIMs,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow I was kind of losing respect, and I became even more rebellious. And the outcome of that was by 99, when I partnered with two other startup team from IIT Kanpur, just 1 year senior to me.
So this is post-master.
This postmaster now in Mumbai. So lots of my batchmates
And you are
there.
independent now.
I'm independent. Yeah.
Okay.
I've just that letter that
Yeah.
Professor Ashok Korwar gave me addressed to KV Kamath.
Okay.
ICICI was doing project
Yeah,
financing,
yeah,
and
okay.
KV Kamath was his student. So that's how. Now lots of my friends who were in consulting companies, BCG and Boozel and all that, then other people,
Yeah.
they were also very happy that somebody from our batch, IIM, is now let's help him,
Okay.
get off the mat. Now I gave this proposal to HDFC for funding. So while I asked somebody to develop my website, this is the company by these two IIT Kanpur
Okay.
people called Design Expo Network. So there's an internet company, website development essentially, and database. So they had envisaged, like Yahoo, a search engine called Sawal.com.
Okay.
So they're also kind of visionaries, Manu Agrawal and Amar Sinha. And then the shubhyatra.com, which was the first to come up with a multimodal smart route finder. So road, rail, air, all combined to get from place A to B. And my brother by that time was at IIT Bombay.
Okay.
So I got his team of interns.
Okay.
And the speed was
So this was the startup journey.
right. Yeah. So we quickly increased the value by 5 times.
Okay.
I had my stock options, though I could only take it as part of my salary, because
Sure.
we don't come from a culture where middle class families would invest their savings in startups,
Okay.
stocks. So that was not there. Otherwise, though, because of that I lost, so I could only take a portion of my
Understood.
stock options. Within 10 months, we got it funded, and I exited to start my venture. And in that same month, in Mumbai, that's how I love the dynamism of Mumbai. I got an offer for a 50-50 joint venture,
Okay.
where my just this presentation would be valued at 11.5 lakhs.
Okay.
And I would put 1 lakh in cash, and they would put 12.5 lakhs plus office and all the computers, everything in Andheri. So that was a kind
Who's
of
the they?
leapfrog.
When you said they would put, who's the they?
The partners.
Yeah.
This was a company which was investing in internet portals, and they had their core business in Pratap Steel Mill in Andheri, and so they're industrialists.
This is now we are in
99.
2099. Okay.
99.
Yeah.
And
Around .com.
yeah,
Whom is?
in 98, because of my journalistic inclinations,
Yeah.
I get my complete framework published in the Strategist Supplement of Business Standard
Okay.
by a journalist, Nitin Srivastava. So that gave me lots of mileage.
Okay.
In 99, I was identified as a global growth company by World Economic Forum,
Okay.
and I was face to face with Klaus Schwab, who's now such a very daunting figure today, for good or bad. That will come to later. So there were lots of futurists in the room,
Yeah.
and we had very interesting discussion. I kind of figured out that somehow that there was a certain dehumanizing, deracinating trait, that he was too mechanized in his thinking, and what he talks about the fourth industrial revolution, about the technological singularity, is actually very delusional, very deranged, and I could see those early signs in that 99 meeting itself, when I didn't continue my association with World Economic Forum. That's another thing. Otherwise, I would get lots of funding, lots of head start,
Yeah.
if I compromised on my core principles. So by 99, now I'm pursuing my idea, and we have a team of 13 people
1-3.
startup, one
Yeah.
three. High-end resources. For
Okay.
example, there was one guy, IIT Kanpur and XLRI, who was 3 years senior from CRISIL.
Okay.
Because now we were competing with the likes of CRISIL and Merrill Lynch, the equity analysis, Credit Suisse, First Boston, and all that. Because when I picked up their reports on steel industry and textile industry that I was familiar with, I would find them very superficial, and I would
So
discuss.
what were you intending to do in this venture?
Yeah, so in this venture, it was about creating aggregate supply and demand information. That was one, so that there is no boom and bust cycle.
Okay.
There is no overcapacity. For example, there was an overcapacity in denim. There was so
So essentially,
Number one.
consulting spin.
consulting spin,
With
and
technology.
then the much bigger part was creating what are called communities of competence and creation.
Okay.
So because the focus was on national innovation framework, I wanted to create a conduit, various channels of how, if there is a problem in industry, how can that go to become a live project in the engineering college?
Okay.
Or if there is some management related problem, how that can become a live project. And I also learned from various case studies from Michael Porter's Competitive Advantage of Nations, that this is how companies like Sun Microsystem, which essentially stands for Stanford University Network, or we know how Facebook came out of Harvard University.
Yeah.
So having close association of industry with technological institutions, with other management institutions, is the key to competitive advantage. So
Well,
that,
at some level, we hope that, as you can all understand, Alumni Tales, this is just another way by which we are all kind of coming together. And I don't think there is a channel dedicated like this, just getting alumni together, telling their stories, all their
Right.
stories without,
Yes.
without
So,
cutting it short,
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So all the credit goes to you, to
Oh.
Karmyogi for the 21st century, for allowing this opportunity to convey. Because see, ultimately knowledge has to be shared, and that is how change will eventually happen.
Well, knowledge sharing is one, but for example, also being able to share that with the kind of conviction and the boldness that in PMO by 3 months, this is the kind of thing that, the world needs to know, that here's a person who has this conviction, and who knows, just the fact that you're saying this and this is heard, and who knows, that could be the catalyst.
Yes, so coming to the story, so now I'm questioning this, Arvind, now this internet startup. So communities of, so for example, in education sector, can't we make our educational institution means independent?
Sure.
That like housing, where you buy something worth so several lakhs or crores, by paying an EMI for the next 20 years. So can I take, benefit of all the education and pay over my lifetime with a tracking card? So we have now Aadhaar, we have
Sure,
all the bank accounts, PAN card linked. So that time I was working on this idea, that we should have a tracking ID so that there is no default and there is no delinquency and everything fits in well. So these are the core ideas. Now, coming to but after developing the product, we had a little bit of challenge, that there was a dot-com bust, if you remember, in 2000. And we kind of got swept, though our thing was more on a hybrid mode, both offline and online. Yet, because it was called IndianDynamics.com.
Okay. Just because the .com.
The .com tag was there. So we didn't get the second round funding from SBI CAPS, about 20 crores for marketing. So the product was ready. We needed to market and we needed a budget for that. So now the team had to, kind of rethink our strategy. And startup was so good on the resume that within a month or so, everyone got very well placed.
Yeah, so that's an important one, I think, very important for to kind of call that out. That startup is not just to succeed and become a unicorn. You know, even from those days, and now of course it's becoming much more. This is much more of a statement that a startup getting into the startup bandwagon and getting into the startup ecosystem in every which way is not just to succeed and become a unicorn, but just as a learning experience.
Yes. So the key learning is that do not get stuck with lots of liabilities. You should know when to exit.
Sure.
And we did that in a very careful manner. And as a result of that, we got placed. But I continued with whatever capital I had remaining, moved my operations to IIT Bombay campus because my brother was there already,
Okay.
and his friends were very already helping me when my office was in Andheri in developing the products using various tools. For example, we used a logistic tool for first mile, last mile connectivity.
Okay.
And I sponsored 2 MTech projects.
Uh-huh.
So in mechanical engineering department and in transportation engineering in civil. I had made a presentation with Professor Eshel Dhingra on multimodal payment integration.
Okay.
Now you have QR code,
Yeah.
so that all that has happened by now. The last effort was to get the whole team to fly to Chennai to make a presentation to Temasek Capital, the sovereign fund of Singapore
Yeah.
government. And the only challenge we had was with regards to government regulation. And now I decided that let me now collaborate with a larger existing corporate. And as again, I would say both lucky and because I was continuously pursuing. So I didn't quit my field. I stuck to it. And I got a good break with Mastec. So I got married.
Your ex employer.
Right, yeah. Yeah. So in June 2002, I got married.
Okay.
And in that time, I was in Hirandani Gardens. So, like everything worked out well that I was kind of running out of my funds. But now I had more time as a newlywed couple. So we had lots of good time because Hirandani Gardens itself with, a waterfall, cascades on one side, the Powai Lake on another, and beautiful architecture was like a honeymooner's paradise. And on the 11th floor, and so excellent. So, but after some time, I had given a proposal to create a Silicon Valley like, to the promoters of Hiranandani Gardens, Niranjan Hiranandani. And I, with whatever limited funds I had, I got a CD made.
Okay.
And the whole project was called Sarga, creation, Sarga.
Okay.
Nisarg
Nisarg and
Sarg.
Okay.
So with music and everything, and he very well liked it. But where we kind of fell out is that his brother had a plan of a largest shoe store in Asia.
Okay.
In that space that we wanted to set up our incubator and a library, and create that Silicon Valley like entrepreneurial culture. With IIT just across
next
the
to
street.
IIT. I was just thinking, next to IIT, that would be a great.
Yeah. So my dreams never.
Is there anything around that area next to IIT? Any inside the IITs now? Of course, we have the research parks. But
right.
There isn't, I would assume, any incubator.
No,
just
there is
next
no
door.
such incubator. In fact, NITI is also close by, which is now IIM. But there is no such incubator. And I'm very happy actually at the very recent turn of events that Harvard University is not taking outside students. I think for a large country like India and like what China is also doing, we need to lift the level of our higher education to world-class level.
Sure.
So that thing was playing on my mind. So one thing that I'd like to especially emphasize is that the dreams never shrunk. The setback never made me feel smaller, like, you move back and retract and you just settle with your usual life. That was never on the agenda. By another 6 months, I gave interview with Mastek, and incidentally that was my senior from IIM Calcutta, and somebody who really very inspired me. We lost him just about 3 years back. Sudhakar Ram, a very well-known figure. He's even written a very important book on out-of-the-box thinking, systems thinking. So he recruited me, and within 15 days I was in London. And just being 6 months into the marriage, so conventionally the dream was to kind of go there for a few years, and everything was working well in that direction. Now I'll come to that particular incident.
You would mention about something that was a...
So that I need to tell the world about, because I had not mince any words. That really very heavy on my heart. And the dates are very interesting. So 13th of April 1919 is the Jallianwala Bagh incident. 13th
April
1919.
1919,
Yes, a century back. And the Britishers who did it, they crossed the deep red line in terms of genocide. It was a genocide, but the very treacherous cover-up that the British Empire did actually led to its downfall. And people like Shankaran Nair, who changed tracks from being a loyal house slave to taking all the risk, and the movie Kesari, chapter 2, that has just recently come up, very nicely made movie. So 13th April is that day. On 14th of April is my day of reckoning.
This is in 2000.
This is in 2003. Now, I'm in London, and I'm with Mastek, who are developing the IT solutions, and a key part, though the billing doesn't reflect that. That's how Indian billing happens. But they were in the thick of things. Capita is the British company, and like General Dyer, I have my tormentor sitting on the dais for a public review of London congestion charging scheme. What are its future prospects for other cities in UK, around the world, and for time to come? Now, David Johnson is there on the dais. Transport for London, which India needs to learn and set up in every city, is the multimodal integration, is that unified body, is just set up, I think, couple of years back. David Johnson is the head of TFL. Incidentally, one of our IIT Kharagpur, my classmate Shashikant Verma, is now the chief technology officer for TFL. He went to Harvard after IIT Kharagpur. So Simon Pilling is there on dais, who is one of the professional director of Capita. Now, I am meeting my duty, I am fulfilling my duty at the highest level, to the extent that Mastek has not informed that they have enrolled me as a unit head for intelligent transportation system practice. And I'm kind of the blue-eyed boy of Sudhakar Ram, and very popular in the circles, and we have a party, and like I dance with those. So this is another thing you may not know about my IITKGP days. As one of the second, third, dance event winners. Not the top guy. I mean, very intuitively and very spontaneous.
Well,
nothing taught.
we introduced the dance choreography programs in Spring Fest and all that in our third year. When we went in, there was no choreography or dance was not part of the overall
Oh
inter-hall
wow! So
things.
I need to give you a treat,
No.
special treat after
This is
this.
in our third year. I think it got introduced. Finally, in my final year, I was GSEC. Third year was Shantanu Bhanjo and Amrit Burman.
So
and
nice to know. So in the year before us, the holiday did not happen. So just on that KGP days track, can you imagine a small town boy writing a 2-page handwritten note on why holiday should happen? As you know, whatever I thought right, I was not shy about it. And you know, lots of seniors said, "Isko bhi ladki ka chaska hai pura," you know, isliye. And you know, Sharmishta was my like, I was hanging around together. So that's another part, you know. So that was the challenge that I was kind of you know, hooted for moving around with her, and it was so embarrassing that I wasn't, you know, strong enough to kind of tell the seniors and all that. And she was a very popular figure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you know well. So that's how it was going. So now on this day, April 14, in one of the town halls, there is this review meeting, and you know, you can think of Bhagat Singh throwing the bomb in the assembly hall. His intent was not to kill; he threw in some corner. My bomb was just a simple question, or rather a comment. I said that just before that, I had attended the Smart Moving Conference. And
Smart Moving
Conference,
yeah.
Because now I am to sell the solution at London congestion charging to the other cities.
Okay.
Mastek has
So this is all about mobility solution.
system.
Yeah.
And essentially it is about congestion charging. So when the system gets rolled
So
out
quickly
in February,
explain congestion
right,
charging
yeah,
for those
sure.
who don't know.
So this is one of those momentous occasions where leading headlines in Time magazine, in The Economist, are now talking about this London congestion charging, in which Mastek is a key partner.
What is the meaning of
So in the
congestion
central
charging?
London, about 25 square kilometers, so there were these cameras, optical character recognition, and all the number plates were read, and you had to purchase a license either before or within 24 hours of your trip.
Okay.
Through SMS, through IVR, so or through kiosks. So these are the three interfaces at that time. Now, of course, we have far more options. Now, these cameras would read, and the DVLA database would match whether you have bought the license or not.
And DVLA would mean
Driver and Vehicle License Authority.
Okay.
Now, if you didn't buy the license, then within 15 days you had to pay a £60 penalty, and beyond that £120. So very steep penalty.
So congestion charging would mean buying the license for creating congestion
for £5, which would be levied on only private vehicles, not the London taxis.
Understood. Yeah.
So
for having come into that zone,
into the central London district, which
So-
is about 25
so-
square kilometers.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
If what we are saying is that for having created more congestion in an already congested area,
Yeah.
you are having to pay for it.
Pay for it so that there is no congestion.
No congestion.
Yeah, and it worked very effectively, but the footfalls decreased with retailers. So there was hue and cry, and in UK everything has to go through referendum.
Okay.
So the trick that they played was that the referendum would be voted by people inside the cordon,
Okay.
and not who were even immediately outside. So for example, somebody who had to just come to NHS, which was inside the congestion charging circle, then why would they pay just for a few 100 meters or maybe a kilometer or so?
Okay.
So it was called as a blunt instrument. And there was somebody, Jack Opiola, one of the leading experts, who was constantly mentoring me that do not go for the camera based solution, blunt instrument, go for a GPS based solution.
Okay.
So I had already incorporated that. I had read papers which talked about 4G at that time and how with satellite navigation, augmentation, the precision of pinpointing would come to sub-meter level.
Okay.
So I was doing all this large scale integration, and that was already presented in national papers, and in 2004 at the
So what was the bomb that you were likening? Some comment of yours. Let's get to that. Yeah.
So I stood up and I commented that this looks unlikely that this system can be carbon copied in other cities in UK or elsewhere, and that even in London it would hold in good stead in time to come. Based on the feedback that I had gathered from the decision makers, the mayors and councillors from Birmingham, Bristol, Edinburgh, which were the next bigger cities.
Yeah.
So it was a very genuine thing for me to share that. And the word carbon copy was being tossed around by Capita.
Okay.
They said that we have so much cloud, like you know what we see some Indian companies, that we will bulldoze our solution. So these are the precise words that we are circulating in the Mastec conversation.
Yeah.
Just for saying this. And see, I was in a catch-22 situation. If I didn't do that, then anyway my solution was not selling.
Okay. Yeah.
And I needed to build the case for the comprehensive integrated solution that I had already developed before joining Mastec. So I had lots of stake in it because I was to get 2 to 3% of the sales, which was into crores. So I mean, I had every reason to
push for this.
Yeah, skin in the game. Now in the evening, I get an email from my boss that Simon Pilling has complained against you. Now this was completely unethical and racist, downright racist.
A complaint against you for having
questioned that the carbon copy cannot be implemented. Now, one is that on Mastec's part, it has not even cared to inform Capita. So this is the lack of professionalism that, you know, to a young, ambitious, bold thinker from IIT IIM, I'm now questioning the whole system.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm supposed to respect my seniors. I'm supposed to follow authority. But where is, you know, any semblance of fairness? Mastec is not, though they are working out of, the project office is within Capita setup in Coventry. Now, I am told that because it is not my fault, I should move to insurance practice.
Okay.
Now, this would completely, you know, belittle and undermine all my efforts, you know, with all the blood and sweat that's gone into it. You know, for example, I was so working intensively that we were expecting our first baby in July, and I was absent. My wife needed, when my wife needed me, I was not there. And yet, I am told very unethically to move out of my role. Next day, and this is something, you know, you have a filmmaking trait. You may like to visualize. The beautiful British lady who's one of our consultants. Okay. She advises me that why don't you try other IT companies? And just as luck would have it, the very next day I meet the regional manager of Tata Consultancy Services, Jayant Krishna, and we strike a chord. All Jayant tells me is that I have to go back to India and meet the head of practice, which is Jyoti Srivastav, who incidentally is another IIM Calcutta alumni. Okay. But, you know, this is happening in one world. Now, this doesn't get communicated because I don't have a recourse to, you know, if I am being asked to leave my role
Ah.
without any fault. So where is the the compensation?
Okay.
I, by international norms, should get at least 3 months salary or 12 months if such a thing happens. But in Indian IT industry, there is no such practice. In turn, because I write a hard-hitting letter that you seem so unprepared, you send me to London without doing the homework, my salary is returned after getting deposited on my account. And imagine that we have a
Newborn baby.
newborn baby expected in couple of months, so the expenses are on the higher side,
Sure.
and I've already exhausted the earlier capital that I had built. So this literally, the entrepreneur story, what Ted Turner talks about CNN, that betting the last shirt. So I have tested that, how does it feel to bet your last shirt and still survive and come out stronger, bounce back.
Of course.
So I have a
Sometimes,
catchphrase.
sometimes it's the skin more than the last shirt.
Yes,
Yes.
even the skin, yes. You put your heart and soul into it. So I coined a catchphrase, and the mother of all catchphrases that I picked up from Harvard Business Review, a article paper by Abraham Zelaznik. It says, "Humankind doesn't live by bread alone; it lives by catchphrases." So a catchphrase that I coined,
क्या बात है? Is how.
it's very true.
course.
You can see this all around if you look at this from this lens. So the
So,
catchphrase,
the good thing is the infinite loop in this.
yes,
In this catchphrase itself.
yes. The catchphrase that I coined is that failure is not the stepping stone of success. Failure is the springboard of success.
Absolutely.
So now I am all emboldened. Now I have, again, TCS is a bigger platform,
Yeah.
and all the excitement of the experiences in UK. Now I am in Delhi, but somehow, because TCS was going for a public issue, the appointment was held back for a couple of months.
Okay.
And if Mastech had just cared to pay me the 3-month compensation, I would not be in difficulty, because at the time of my elder daughter being born, imagine, parents have so much expectation. I'm talking about my
Your
father,
parents, yeah.
and suddenly I was out of cash.
Yeah.
Somehow, whatever, the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law equations and, complications arose, which cast a kind of shadow, which somehow, the family could never, I have not been pardoned for my, audacity, for leaving Mastech when it was just asking me to switch departments.
Understood.
That may seem a non-lethal attack, but in terms of my emotional, turmoil, to be alive and be in emotional turmoil is far more gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And I was, holding the flag. I was responding to the likes of Narayan Murthy's, who've become such a laughing stock today, thank goodness, who were telling that there's nothing big invention coming out of India. And here I'm sitting with something that is so well organized, that's so well recognized in UK, which is with which we have this very interesting relation, where I tell in that Birmingham conference that you gave us railroads, we will give you state-of-art intelligent transportation system. And incidentally, the transportation secretary in those months comes up with a transportation innovation fund, a pump priming fund for demonstration of new projects of 150 million pounds. So I am like on cloud 9. And Incidentally, TCS, I have a boss who understands and he gives me all that liberty now the next tender comes of Edinburgh. Now this gets very interesting. Do you know who TCS chooses to partner for bidding that tender?
Mustec? No.
No, the same British company Capita.
Oh, Capita. Okay. Good for you. To get
Good for me, but somehow I am not strong enough, or I do not have my large countries backing, like they are doing today.
Yeah, no, I said
going
that my
after
comment
issues.
good for you is, the
Yeah,
battering.
good.
Battering, the more
Yes.
battering in life, the better it's for you. That's the,
That's very true. That's very true. But somehow, despite the fact that Jayant Krishna was strongly supporting my approach, and there was another IIT Kanpur alumni, Amit Nagar, the Britishers in the team, they, hang a lollipop there with Sarkar, another outsourcing company. Then we also get so much other, BPO kind of projects. Nothing to focus on the merit of the Edinburgh congestion charging, how we can maximize, how we can get into the higher end of the
value
design
chain or
implementation. There's no thought on that. So what is the point of hiring IIT and IIM when you are going to just do coolie job, donkey's job? It really kind of, and when you ask questions, you are declared a cultural misfit.
So then from this was which year? All this
So
is
this
happening?
is now in 2004,
Okay.
2005 by now.
Okay.
And in 2004, TCS, whereas I'm at TCS, I present the paper at Intelligent Transportation System World Congress. And this is a huge event inaugurated by Prince Hirohito. This huge song and dance fanfare, drum beats and all that. And I'm the only professional researcher whose paper is selected from around the world. I do an interesting thing that I have these two big cutouts of the before and after scenario.
Okay.
And that gets lots of traction. I get feedback from people from Toyota, from Siemens, from BMW that this is exactly what the future of transportation looks like. And I'm like, gung-ho. And I want to come back to TCS. In the same months, a Singapore technology company, whose onboard unit was shortlisted for the Autobahn project in Germany. Imagine, very technologically savvy country. That company, based on my design, was willing to give 51% majority stake to TCS. These achievements were never talked about in the media. This is what I need the alumni support to come out.
That is the idea. See, the idea is that media is media. It has its own limitations. It's also not easy what we have here with social media and all this is not. We don't know how many people will listen or hear to whose stories, but at least the stories are there to be told and there to be heard for those who would like to. So,
Saurabh, I won't hide, and it really makes my blood boil when people like Narayan Murthy,
no. So, but
talk
blood
about
boiling,
70-hour
but the
work weeks.
It doesn't matter whether it makes your blood boil or not, because if you got to
No, they are not concerned about the innovation ecosystem in the country. They want our youngsters to work 70 hours a week when the international norm is moving towards 35-40 hours a week. We don't want to move up the value chain even after so many years of the learning curve of the IT industry.
Well, we will hopefully have platforms and scope to ask these questions to Narayan Murthy when he's here. But him not being here, and kind of bashing him
So
is
that's
not something
where, no,
that makes...
so I am going to think aloud and ask you that we need to organize an open house,
Sure.
because I had correspondence with Mr. Narayan Murthy on later years that, why don't you walk the talk? Why don't you invest? And you know what response I got from T Infosys? That, okay, we have some fourth party logistics assignment in which we can fit in some of this expertise.
So be it. I mean, that's...
Yeah. So we need to do an open house or maybe a series of, because we don't, we cannot, Piyush Goyal recently at the Startup Mahakumbh made a very interesting remark about how our startups are in such low hanging, still running after low hanging fruits of, pizza toppings and ice creams and etc. whatever, local delivery that he mentioned. And yet, imagine that IIT Kharagpur is one of the oldest institutions, and I dutifully and religiously live up to its credo of dedicated to the service of the nation, and it really, at times defeats me, despite my very indomitable spirit, that this is not being taken notice. And I'm not going to shy away from it, that if we do this, we can be at par with China or even go beyond, because we have the demographic dividend on our side. We have lots of strengths to solve what are called super wicked problems, which China is not attempting right now.
So the idea about all this is that we definitely will not get anywhere by, posing as victims and by becoming, kind of get caught into the victim mindset. So I will move on from there and see, because this is all about where we can go. And because and as I said, with the whoever we may consider, you may consider, I may consider, anyone else may consider, perpetrators of whatever.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter unless we have a chance to really discuss it constructively.
There is an other side of it. So I'll come to the constructive part of it.
Yeah.
So when the Edinburgh
I mean,
Convention charging,
it's all very exciting to, I am sure if we do some rant here, and with social media today, it's very easy.
No,
Everything goes.
I'll make it very meaningful and very well directed.
Sure.
So when the Edinburgh congestion charging referendum came, it got defeated 2:1 because Capita tried to bulldoze the carbon copy of the London solution, and that was rejected. Just as I had told on the afternoon of 14th of April. It has been a good, 22 years. Capita has not been able to implement in even single place. There is only 1 second congestion charging that has been rolled out by IBM in Stockholm, and that again cheated on the people by allowing only people inside the referendum to vote. In Edinburgh's case, even though that was the same case, but even then it got defeated 2:1. And unlike London, the congestion charge there was just £2. So instead of learning from what the people really needed, what is the real demand, Indian companies did not question. And again, by now, in TCS, as earning a reputation, because say definitely when the British team members, they tried to show their racist overtones in the email exchanges, and especially an old lady who put down my saying that I had no authority to question the automobile ownership habits, practices of United Kingdom. They can tell us, white man's burden, they can discharge it, and premature ejaculation without trying to understand our context. And we do not have a right to even propose something that's very meaningful, that's getting support of IBM and PA Consulting there. So I'd like this case to be reopened, because there is
hopefully, hopefully what I would say is that there are ample examples There is the most celebrated one that comes to my mind is with Apple, and what happened out there with the time when it was taken over by the founder himself. Steve Jobs had to kind of go out of the whole thing. So if you just look at his story, and then came a time when he had to come back and reinvent, and so again, maybe a Western story. I'm sure there are stories like that in history all the time. So just that's where we have to focus on, because
so you make a very interesting comment. So Steve Jobs has been one of my role models.
Beautiful.
And if you would dig down into his comeback, he organized a developers conference, and in that he was kind of affronted by a very rude question that you've been in the oblivion for so long. Why do you think that investors will buy into your story? What different are you concept idea are you bringing to the table?
Sure.
And the reply that Steve Jobs gave is what makes him so legendary. Is something that every entrepreneur, every innovator must know. He said that so far the industry has been approaching from what technology they can supply. We want to focus on the user interface, that what exactly, with the mobile phone in their hand, what exactly can any user dream of? What are the dreams that we can bring? And that the interface, the touch interface that he created, getting the QWERTY keypad onto the screen itself, and all the innovations and that he did is what makes him a legend. And also his connect with spirituality, his visits to the Neem Karoli Baba, and the thinking aloud is what I kind of have been inspired by.
Beautiful.
And I've tried to do what he did on that smartphone. Now I've tried to invert it. Now, can the smartphone be an instrument for changing the world around us? So can the microcosm move the macrocosm, if they are really mirror of each other? Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. Can the tail wag the dog?
Sure. So let's take the cue from there and understand the 3 months to the PMO story.
Right. So before that, let me close on the Edinburgh congestion charging that got defeated in the referendum. And the thing is that when I quit TCS, so in between there was also this story about Prince Charles' visit to India, in which the Mastech founders with him, Prince Charles thought aloud that you have much worse problems than London. Why don't you implement the congestion charging scheme here?
Okay, yeah.
So that emboldened me, especially after my paper presented in Japan at the Intelligent Transportation System World Congress. So I was now very sure that I want to implement it in India. And even though subsequently I worked with a European company called Logica, and I presented another paper at Intelligent Transportation System World Congress in Sweden in 2009. In the same year, I was invited for a 4-day workshop at Ohio by Community Solutions for implementing this system at Dayton Metropolitan Region, and then represent them to bid for a funding for value pricing program at Washington. But what also I learned from that trip is that in US, the automobile dealers, their vice-like grip is so hard on automobile sales that India has that leapfrog advantage. What we have enjoyed in the case of telecom, with the setup of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, or in terms of UPI, micro payments, and the QR code, which has made every gate interoperable, and AI and many other technologies that have so far developed, that today I can tell you without mincing any words that if we can do this, this is bigger than all Elon Musk projects put together. You know, who till some time back was the richest man in the world. So, Saurabh, I would like you to, not kind of miss out is that here was a story bigger than Sundar Pichai. So, I mean, I actually feel deeply embarrassed because I'll also tell you the way it is that my rank, JE rank was 1300. Sundar was 1500.
Okay.
And I took a conscious call to dedicate all my intellect, all whatever genius that I'm credited with, to the betterment of the country. I'm not at all in any way belittling the enormous contributions that Sundar has made to humanity through Android, through Gmail, and through Google Maps and so many other the integration. It's humongous, and we must be very proud of him. But I wouldn't like to get overshadowed, and especially I like to point out one thing about psychology, that lots of things in those impressionable years, so I was always though age mellows you down, but I still have that dream of creating that $1 trillion unicorn.
Beautiful. So what I would say is that it doesn't matter whether what we like or we don't like, whether you prefer not to be overshadowed or not. The fact would remain is that at this point of time, given what it is, there is the shadow, and which doesn't mean that it is for all times to come. Which is why it's I would say more important to switch and understand this 3 months to the PMO. If that clicks, then you emerge from the shadows. So because you cannot today deny the shadow. So which is again not to say light is all light. You are complete light. We all are. Each one is. So there is nothing to think about the shadow, but also be aware that just you and me ranting from here with whatever, with whatever channel and Alumni Tales and all that is not going to change. People are going to hear this and mostly only conclude that, because he's not succeeded, he's saying all this. So let's focus on where there is a possibility of success. Again,
very interesting. So I am consciously bringing it out in a way
and it makes for good viewership. You know all that. When you say this, it makes for good viewership, but it's also important to remain grounded.
So for me, it's a very interesting mind experiment that on one hand, way back, I learned this chapter 3, 27th shloka, translated into a one line called deluded by egoism. Man thinketh I am the doer. This is around 96.
Ahankara vimudatma karta ahmiti manyate.
Absolutely. So this became my mantra for rest of my life. And yet I like to keep this interplay of consciously admitting that somewhere in my deeper recess there is this sense of not being that perpetual underachiever or even a failure in conventional terms, because things have to be manifested. So I believe that whatever spiritual powers, energies that we get through our practice of truth, it must manifest. And I don't believe in relapsing to the Himalayas and the Palayan Vadita. And the other day you made a very interesting framework that you must time yourself well, when to retract, like we know about Krishna, the Ranchhod Das, and when to adjust and when to get on the counter offensive. So I think the turn of events, because with the Nimit Bhav, you also watch things, everything going around you, and you're just indistinguishable with this Leela. That sense is always there, but that interplays with my younger days aspiration and also the social milieu around me keeps reminding me that whatever pursuit that they were so excited about, isn't it time? And even my daughters are now beginning to question, who are,
which is
and so I think I owe it to everyone else and to myself to get it out. And like you said, the PMO in 3 months is the way to it. And that's another shock and awe, that the turn of events is that by his own admission, the current Prime Minister said that by 75 years, people should move to Margdarshak.
Oh, so that's you're saying that there is a vacancy that might
Yeah,
might emerge.
Number one. Number two is that I was very close to Nitin Gadkari ji through his political advisor, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe, who is not only highly educated but very sensitive, and he's been my political mentor. And he even commissioned a project, research project on drafting the National Transport Policy.
Okay.
Now, the only thing I would like to publicly share about that, after I completed the National Transport Policy draft, I proposed
This was
that
which year?
This was in the year 2012-13.
Okay.
I proposed that we must have a national land use and transport integration policy,
Okay.
because it doesn't work just in isolation.
Sure.
Somehow there was a little political sensitivity that Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe was aware of about the land grab agenda, the hidden agenda, the post-colonial era. By vacating our villages and crowding our big cities by moving capital. So just like water flows from high level to low level, people move from low capital availability, low salary to higher salary.
Sure. Yeah.
So that has been consciously done by a World Bank policy in 1996 by the current president, who said it aloud that 400 million Indians were planned to be
moved from
to migrate from the rural, from the villages, and we see that happening. Now, I was suggesting that we should instead create counter magnates and depopulate our cities, because this is actually an anti-national, anti-people strategy.
Sure.
Even if there may be political compulsions, expediencies.
Yeah.
So this was a controversial thing for him early in the BJP regime, for him to take this plunge and give me the commission that project to draft the national land use policy. Though I believe that we have the leapfrog opportunity in these 12 years. So as you would now be able to relate better, I look at the current regime from a very different level of threshold with different yardsticks than what the general approach is to compare it with, that this is better than Congress. I do believe that it's better in many respects.
Sure.
There is lots of dynamism, there is lots of visibility.
No, and anyone, I'm sure everyone believes that there's always room for going up and improving.
Yes, so it is all about Saurabh, at IIT. We are conditioned to raise the bar, and this is another catchphrase that I'd like to. BAR is an acronym, so B is bold, A is audaciously outrageous,
Okay.
and R is radical.
Okay.
So we need to raise the bar. Lowering the bar, the dumbing down that is happening, and IITians enjoying all the privileges because they came easy to us. Because in our time, very few IITs and the opportunities were much bigger. As one of our fellow alumnus tells that, and our fees were near zero. I in fact was getting a scholarship also. So our education was socialized and our earnings are capitalized.
Okay.
So we have a special responsibility to ensure that our coming generation enjoys better security, better air quality, better water availability and quality, better food, better educational standards, better health, better culture, spirituality, everything. And I somehow, very deep down, feel that we have let the country down. And I would like, as an alumni, to make it very loud and clear, means no words, that we have failed the country. And in our echo chambers, this may not resonate well, but hell I care. And that's been my style. There is lots of deep love. Nobody in my alumni circle can tell me that.
So when you say we, what does that we mean here?
See,
the alumni,
we meaning that for the past 12 years, and what gives me the conviction that our team would be in PMO in next 3 months, is that I'm part of about 10 different movements.
Okay.
I've been the lead strategist of the farmer movement. One of the Padma Shri awardee, Bharat Bhushan Tyagi-ji, who's one of the key advisors to the agriculture minister, gave me a letter to represent the negotiations that were happening between the protesting farmers and the minister, Narendra Singh Tomar, at that time. And I am to meet Shivraj Singh Chauhan very soon. He's also the rural development minister. What gives me conviction is that for Ganga Andolan, Professor G.D. Agrawal, who was another IITian, he took
No,
the
I
name.
still haven't got the answer to the question. When you said we have failed, this we, you meant the alumni?
Yeah,
or
by we I meant the alumni,
Okay.
as well as not just IIT Kharagpur alumni,
Yeah.
but the Pan IIT alumni.
Pan IIT alumni. Okay, so here's a very
Yes.
important one. Whether you agree or don't agree, whether you take all this discussion that is happening, what Chandra Vikas is bringing forth for all of us. Some of you, I'm sure, will take this as a rant. He is, as again, he himself says, although in the same batch with Sundar Pichai right now, not in the same league as Sundar Pichai. So you may very well just take it as a rant of someone who, being in the same batch, has not become in that
No,
got
so
to the
you
same
must
league. No,
qualify.
just
It
to
is-
make
yeah.
the point. You may take it, but I don't want anyone to miss the point that here is a very important statement for all of us, a wake-up call for all of us, whether you agree or not. But here is someone making that statement. Whether there is truth in the statement or not is another matter. But there is truth that here is someone sitting right here and making the statement that we, as Pan IIT alumni, have failed the nation. Let's go on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is rant from the echo chamber that we are trapped into. If you look at it from the country's point of view, which nurtured us,
Oh, sure.
which provided the nourishment for our privileged existence,
Sure.
we have an obligation.
Oh,
And I must tell you that even with very aggressive people and very powerful people like Arun Jaitley, so I had a showdown with him on a technical issue of bullet trains, and like always, I would do my homework. So I was very clear that IIM Ahmedabad, in its report, had said that 18 trips would be needed for the break even.
Okay.
And there's no space, there's no traffic, there's no demand between Mumbai and Ahmedabad for that. Similarly, if you really wanted people to reach faster, you could increase a few flights. Right? Why would you destroy, thousands of acres of forest, mangroves, orchards at a time when that region, Mumbai, is so ecologically unstable? If you remove the mangroves, the flooding, the city will drown. It's already, you can see last few days what is happening. So I wanted to bring in the ecological perspective, also very strongly, along with the aspirations of a developed world in terms of material progress. So My point is that we need to introspect.
Sure.
We need to reflect
Sure.
on our, nearly now about 75 years of our existence.
Yeah.
That what have really we received and what have we given. And I don't want to like you said, rant, if at all that's the impression you get. But this is my very humble and very sincere appeal, that if you do not make yourself relevant within next few years, or actually within few months, because a very important development has happened, that India is now a signatory to WHO pandemic treaty. And we may like to be aloof, we may like to be very much in denial in our echo chambers, but the reality is that just like GATT, WTO took away our economic sovereignty, the pandemic treaty gives WHO extra sovereignty powers to supersede and declare pandemic at any point of time based on their very manipulated assessment. So you should know. Very few IITians know, and this really makes me ashamed of being an IITian, though I'm proud in so many respects, that our general knowledge is very poor. We do not even care about that the definition of pandemic was changed about 15 years back. You take a call. How many of IITians know this? That earlier pandemic was about so many cases, disease. Today it is just about symptoms based on some fabricated test which its inventor Carey Mullis ran down. That is not a diagnostic test. Vaccine never gets developed within months. It was an emergency use drug. It was a bioweapon. There was a depopulation agenda. But because we have our cozy comfort, we are fancy cars, our echo chambers, our foreign vacations, and we think that this will leave a legacy which the country can be proud of, then I think you should all take चुल्लू भर पानी और उसमें जाके हम सबको डूब मरना चाहिए अगर हम इसमें रीथिंक करने के लिए तैयार नहीं है. देखो जब भाव
I would so very important to take these inputs and take these inputs seriously, and as Chandra says, rethink and take a decision. I am obviously not pushing on the agenda about the Chullu Bhar Pani or the agenda about, but definitely there is room to rethink and give importance and not just get swayed. That is important. Whether to take sides with him on it, it is clear that there is a certain point of view and Chandra is playing from a certain side. Whether that side is the right one or the wrong one is your choice, but I think it is important.
Everything is open to scrutiny.
Oh, sure.
Everything that I said is open to scrutiny, and every way you look at it, even if you are money minded, this is a make or break. We can create 20% GDP growth by simply removing the waste inefficiencies in our air pollution, in traffic jams, in road accidents, and in parking waste.
So for example, traffic accidents kill 150,000 people every year, in just our country, and this
432 people in a day.
Yeah, and the number of people who get injured is just countless.
Yes.
So many are not even reported. So that's about, the estimate is 8 to 10 times that number.
Saurabh, for 1% of the total vehicle fleet of the world, we have 12% of the fatalities and even higher percentage of injuries and material loss.
So but the point was that, and this has been going on for years and years and years. It's not just that it happened as an accident last year, and yet there was never a lockout of any road or there was no lockdown of roads. People are dying and it's avoidable. I mean, just to share with you personally, we worked along with one of our other alums who was very much part of the Kolkata traffic police setup, and we worked phenomenally and with results in 1 year of hard work. And this is data. I mean, again, I want to point these as constructive things, not really bringing conspiracy theories into this, which people will very easily throw out and challenge. But there's data to prove that just by bringing in constructive effort, traffic accidents in Kolkata came down by 36% in 1 year.
Yes.
Despite the fact that average traffic speed went up by about 3 kilometers per hour. Now that is available. That all that is available. And on the other hand, when we sway down the path of making decisions that we have to lock things down just because there is a fear of people dying, whereas on the other hand there is not just a fear, there is data about people dying year after year. If we have not locked things down for that, what have we done? And I hope you mentioned about Gadkari ji's, and I've heard him in every platform. He's looking for solutions to the traffic accident problem.
Yes.
So
no, he's gone to the extent saying that he's ashamed in international conferences when the issue comes to the accident rate fatalities in India.
Sure. So, for example, there is room there to work there. There is, of course, room. If you want to fight, you fight the pandemic and the pandemic perpetrators and all that. That's one part of it. This is not the platform to push that agenda. There are social media's platforms everywhere. So I wouldn't say this is a platform to push the agenda of fighting against, but this definitely is a platform for fighting for the constructive stuff.
Yeah, so what I find very amazing is that collectively humanity has developed all the technologies. For example, if there is a two-way communication onboard unit sitting inside the vehicle, shouldn't we have a zero tolerance to road accident fatalities or even any uneven collision?
Absolutely. I mean, on this point, I mean, as I said,
so it's a travesty of all our claims of technological advancement.
Sure.
That
absolutely, as I said,
in the 21st century,
in the claims for, again, I am not making any claim on which side of that road I am, but on the claims of what would typically very easily be called conspiracy will be dismissed as conspiracy theory. So instead of getting there, I think it's much more important to really call out these things that Chandra is bringing out, which is that if we have zero tolerance for terrorism today, why can't we have zero tolerance for traffic accidents?
So Saurabh, just because people relate with numbers much better, so even World Economic Forum has gone on record saying that in private hands, motor vehicles are used for not more than 4% of the times. This was 5 years back. After COVID and with the work from home trend, that number in India is between 2 to 3%. Now, would you in any setup have an asset which is lying idle for 97-98% of the times? Would you ever think that is judicious?
Yeah. No, so absolutely. If we can, why can't we, the alumni, get together and call?
Yes, it's a $1 trillion opportunity waiting to be tapped, and we can do it with the existing technologies within next 12 months. So that is my aspiration.
No, so just to understand, what are you talking about in next 12 months? What is the $1 trillion opportunity exactly?
Mobility as a service. Okay. We need is a regulatory authority like TRAI called Unified Land Use and Multimodal Transportation Regulatory Authority.
Okay. So we'll get into that detail in another, but because I'm sure that is a big part of what you can bring to the table. But just to understand that if it was possible to, or if there was courage or gumption to do what was needed to bring about zero tolerance for terrorism, if it was possible to take the decisions to lock down this whole country for months, that was a bold decision needed.
Yes.
And it was taken.
Yes.
If it was possible to take the decision to demonetize at the time, it was, again, good, bad, right, wrong, not into that. But just if those kind of decisions were taken, then I'm sure that some of the decisions that Chandra is talking about here is definitely worth exploring. And I definitely would hope that through this platform, the alumni would hear him out and listen to him, listen to his cries, and not just dismiss it as someone ranting, someone who's not succeeded as much as Sundar or whatever ranting here. Not just that. There is some grains of wisdom here, some very important stuff coming out, which is worth not neglecting.
Yeah, so once again, everything I said is open to scrutiny, and the point is that if so, my appeal and my urge to all of the alumni and everyone listening to this is that just think about the possibilities and we are so well confined to our echo chambers. It certain ideas. So I'll just share a toolkit and there's something called the Overton window.
Okay.
And something that I learned which works very effectively. It was developed by James Overton at the CIA, and you know that they're very good with mass psychology. So it talks about that ideas are outside the Overton window. At the extreme, they are called unimaginable.
Sure.
Then by talking about it, like I have said, talked about many such things, they become seen as radical. Then next is that they are seen acceptable for discourse. So what I have really hit hard upon, and I'm not taking back any word, the challenge to Narayan Murthy and everyone of the ilk, that make it acceptable for discourse. Let's do the benefit cost. And I am telling you that within 12 months, India can become a developed country. The Viksit Bharat dream that we have of 2047, which is a procrastination, can happen within next 2 years. We are so well poised for that leapfrog. And that really makes me so enthusiastic about it. And I know, I can't force my opinion, but you are welcome to look at it as a ranting or raving. But for me, it's a genuine concern that we are letting down our younger generation. And as we grow older, they will dump into some, remote old home, or maybe even cull out, because euthanasia is now legalized for that purpose. So no, I'm not trying to sound very alarmist. It's a very practical concern, and it's for you to take it or leave it. Thank you.
So that's a crazy one. I'm sure when we started, we were probably thinking where this is going, and probably in the beginning of this whole thing getting a little bored, but I really loved the fact that this where it went. And again, as I said, this platform is what we call Alumni Tales. It is a platform to give a chance to all our alumni, not just the distinguished ones, not just the celebrated ones, but everyone, a chance to just be who they are. If I'm sure, if we were sitting in Chedis and discussing, this is the Chandra Vikas that we would be hearing, that we would be listening to. But now we are far away from Chedis and we don't always get this chance. It is important to get a chance to listen. And one very important thing is that we generally, even when we were spending those 4 years in IIT, the one important thing that it didn't teach us, that institute, that hallowed institute, which we all love, didn't teach us, is how to be good listeners. We all knew that we had a lot to say. We all were in that, cognitive little froth. Truly so, and we would always in any group want to be heard, and we would always want to get the other person's voice down and make yourself heard, which is the hallmark of being bad listeners. And I know from my own personal experience, it took me years and years to even recognize that. And once after recognition, it took another many years to practice. And even today, it's far from, a skill that I can be proud of, listening skills. And that's what we're trying to do here. Just listen to what people who have graduated from that portal many years back, or maybe a few years back, and have gained some experience of the world, what do they have to share? Where are they standing? Is there something where we as a community, alumni, which we take a lot of pride in, can do some seva to each individual? We can, if we have heard Chandra, we have heard where he stands today, is there some helping hand that we can, is there a hand we can, take towards him where he stands? And where we all stand, is there something where he is actually throwing his hand out and saying, hold it, I want to take you there? Are we ready to extend our hands? And that's the whole idea of this platform.
Saurabh, sorry to interrupt, and maybe this may disappoint you and many of the popular opinion. Another thing that IIT did questions, and one question that I'm going to ask all of you is that who sits in judge of when we say what is successful or what is a role model? I think that we have surrendered our right, our freedom to the same colonial overlords to dictate who among us is considered as successful, and then the media, kind of parodies it, repeats it over and over again. And like they say, if you tell a lie 1,000 times, it becomes. This is something American president talked about, the popular errors and the unpopular truth.
Sure.
So I choose, in all my capacity as a individual and as somebody who with a capacity to think and express, that I would rather be that unpopular truth instead of becoming a popular error.
No, good enough. And again, as I said, success is always within a bracket. We bracket something, and within that framework, we try to measure success. We remove the brackets, who knows? So that's, of course, that is
yeah.
the point.
So success within those brackets, there is lots of delusion we create, lots of denial, and I even coined a term, successful, where the full is not FUL but FOOL.
Understood.
So I think, if somebody or some external agency like our good professors were to rate us, I don't think IITs as a system gets more than 2 out of 10. This is my honest self-assessment. We think, and all the efforts of extreme contributions by likes of Sundar Pichai doesn't change the fact that we are 2 out of 10. That's our scorecard collectively after these 75 years.
Yeah. So again, I would say we used to have tough taskmasters who would be very strict about marks, and we would have professors who would, be very generous with the marks. And I would go with both. Both are there, and it's for you to understand that here, with this gentleman here, we have a person who's not easy. He's not going to give you good marks just because we have succeeded in certain ways, and those successes are definitely successes in a certain yardstick. Not to deny that, and we have failed in so many, and it's of course very important to also understand that it's important to not be in denial on both sides of the table. So if being on a certain pedestal, you have still not been able to solve the 150,000 people dying every year of traffic accidents,
Yes.
just as one small yardstick.
Yes.
You know, you want to wake up to that, and be in denial of that. On the same front, I don't think it makes too much sense to be in denial of the fact that the world does recognize success in a certain way, and you know, that is how the world recognizes it. Most of the world, a lot of the world recognizes success in that way. That's what drives aspiration today. It's those pedestals which you're probably talking about as not yardsticks of who sits in judgment. Well, I don't know, but the truth is that that is the aspiration. So whoever sits in judgment has sat and judged that is the aspiration, that is aspirational. Whether it should be that or not is each one's call. Each one needs to sit in judgment.
That brings us to the next important question: who sets that aspiration? Do people with their base, passions, set those aspirations of what is monetized, or rather, do our aspirations reflect our actual contribution, the actual impact that we bring to the table, bring to the ground?
All that I would know is,
and even I would question the 150,000 road accident deaths that you talked about. Do you know that by various accounts there are several times more unregistered deaths?
Absolutely. So absolutely, what I'm trying to say is, in answer to your question about who sets the aspirations, the one thing that I know personally, at least, is that I don't. That's all that I can say. I know that very clearly. I don't, and I hope that each one of us get empowered enough to set those aspirations. What drives us to set those aspirations? Well, but as I said, very important, I've understood it's not to deny the fact that I don't set those aspirations, and just because I control the mic here, or I control the conversation or the narrative here, there is not a very high chance that we will set each one's aspirations. So, at one level, it is very important to enjoy the Leela and let this Leela unfold, and within that, try and see if there is room for Dharma Sangsthapan, as it was said. So good. I think we've spent quite some time together. We had promised that we would steal only half an hour of your time, but I'm sure that Chandra mentioned a few times about spirituality and things like that in this very material driven discussion. So in the realm of this, in the spiritual realm, it is that realm where time dissolves, and I hope you will pardon us for having lost count of time and having dissolved time into this discussion where two fellow alumni could sit together and spend some time together to probably do a little bit of seva to the entire alumni ilk, once again hoping that this would create a possibility for handshakes for all of us who sit on the other side of the screen, and also inviting each of you to come and take Chandra's hot seat here and just be yourself. That's all for today. Thank you.